All right, guys. Well, welcome to the AI and automations and VC operations session. Today we are going to talk about a lot of great things, actually. Mostly we're going to talk about, well, I just said it, AI and operations, right? And automations, excuse me. So when I heard that there was a chance that I would moderate this session, I got really excited. And I think the reason for that is because we really have a passion for AI and automations, right? This whole group does. We have a lot of things that we juggle on the day-to-day basis. As the manager of solutions engineering with the Affinity team, it's not just about making sure that my team is doing things and operationally correctly and doing the right activities and tasks, but it's also about getting to understand, the strategies of the entire private capital market, as well as the business strategy as well. So we're juggling a lot of things, right? And so the more help we have with things like AI and automations, the faster I can actually move. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I've got an amazing panel up here, and we're going to talk about how leading VCs are using workflow automation to boost efficiency and effectiveness in their day-to-day operations. So we'll start with introductions. Again, my name's Kyle Turner. I'm with Affinity.co, and I lead our solutions engineering team. For those of you in the room that don't know who Affinity.co is, we are a CRM who is purpose-built for venture capital. Awesome. Ashley?
Thank you, Kyle. I'm Ashley. I lead strategic operations over at Autotech Ventures. We are an early-stage VC firm that specializes in mobility and ground transportation. My background is in alternative investments and fund operations. I began over at FS Investments and eventually moved into AngelList. Now at Autotech, I primarily lead endeavors with automation and AI to streamline our workflows, our internal processes, our fundraising operations, and investor relations.
Awesome. Daniel?
Hello, everyone. I'm Daniel. I'm part of the Flybridge investment team. Flybridge is an early-stage venture fund based here in New York. We've been investing now for over 23 years, currently investing out of our 7th fund. And inside Flybridge, my main role is investing on the infrastructure layer, enablement layer of AI. But I would say 50 to 20% of my time I also dedicate to building and thinking about how we can adopt AI internally at Flybridge.
Nice. George?
Hi there, everyone. My name is Georgie, and I'm the managing partner at Overdrive. Overdrive is an AI automation services firm where we help companies automate their systems so they can grow faster and enter Overdrive. VCs is one of their core verticals that we work in, among others, and we help VCs build their data-driven systems. So we've served dozens of clients. We're partnered with some really cool organizations like TDVC, and we help VCs build their data systems.
Perfect, thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Michael, and I'll try to bring the GP perspective into this conversation. 0100 is an early stage fund primarily focusing on Eastern Europe and Middle East, so a little exotic for this audience. But I think we are kind of platform first VC, also literally because the platform was built before the VC existed, so we were running lots of LP and GP conferences across the whole Europe and Middle East and big tech festivals and built loads of value add for the startups before we started investing into them. And thanks Westbury for invitation. Glad to be in New York.
Awesome. See, I told you guys I had a great panel up here. All right, well, let's get in some questions. The first question that we've got is going to be around automation use cases. Ashley, I've got this question for you if you're game for it. Awesome. Hey, at Affinity, we often see firms reduce hours on manual work by automating contact capture and also deep deal pipeline management. So I'm curious if there's a specific area for your VC operations where automation has made the biggest impact. I'm wondering if you could share how it's changed your internal workflows and how it's made your life easier too.
Yeah, definitely. I can think of 2 use cases here that have made the biggest impact for my team and made my life easier. The first has to do with LP engagement and deal flow. One of the services we provide our corporate LPs is sending them deals, startups that our deal team has passed on. Before we do that, we want to capture what the startup does in a very brief one paragraph summary, and also apply a taxonomy to it. Our taxonomy was created by us, and it is built around ground transportation and mobility, of course. So that applies to our LP's interests. As you can imagine, this used to take a lot of time. It was very time consuming, a lot of manual work. We had to go scour the web, look through pitch decks, look at LinkedIn to compile that information. So it was a lot of human labor doing that. And then we would, of course, apply the taxonomy. To solve for this, we began utilizing a web scraping tool, Python, to pull info from public sources and then basically feed it to a custom GPT that was trained on our taxonomy. So that custom GPT will summarize based on the information we provide it and apply the taxonomy. This reduced time taken on this process by about 90%, and it tripled our output to LPs a week, so going from 40 deals, and tripling that. And then for my next use case has to do with fundraising, vetting, and research. Fundraising is the hot topic right now apart from AI, and so I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with having to go out and research about prospective LPs. Our fundraisers do this, of course, to see who would be a good candidate, worth pursuing, and seeing who we can move through the pipeline, and then if we do decide to pursue them, coming prepared to meetings. So, of course, again, this is something that also took a lot of time, research, scouring the internet, LinkedIn pitch book, but with ChatGPT's deep research tool, we're able to feed it a select number of prospective LPs with a short set of questions, what is the EBITDA, who are the major shareholders, and then export that info in an Excel format and upload to our CRM. And from there, we can run reports, so our fundraisers can look at it quickly and be like, that person's or that company is worth pursuing, or I'm going to pass on this one. And then when they do decide to pursue someone and get a meeting with them, they can show up to those meetings prepared. And of course, that has reduced the time taken as well. Deep research claims to take no more than 20 minutes, and I've found that to be the case as well. Of course, how it makes my life easier is reducing busy work. I think that's the case for so many of the things we're trying to automate. Just getting rid of these repetitive tasks so we can focus on the more strategic parts of operations. And I also think another big impact is that it's shifting the skill set from having to do a lot of heavy research and writing to needing to be more adaptable and resourceful and being able to learn different tools more quickly and also train them better. And then more importantly, quality control. We want to always verify the output. As we know, these LLMs still hallucinate. As many of the other panelists today spoke about, some of the information can be inaccurate. So I believe human oversight is still super important.
I love it. All that's great stuff, for sure. Perfect. Anybody else have anything to add?
Maybe just a thought. I can share what we've done wrong in this use case. Sharing deal flow with LPs, it's a really big topic for us, and we spend lots of time on it as well. And I think the initial assumption that let's automate and let's be efficient to share more deals, more startups, more data. It's a good start because you need to show your LPs that you have access, that you understand the market, that you see the deals, etc. But as your relationship progresses, it stops to be about the startups that you share. It's more about the LPs. You need to know everything about them. You need to be timely on the right time, right place, and everything like that. And it's more about sharing just one deal a quarter is enough to have a really strong relationship rather than spam them with lots of data and lots of startups because nobody wants that. So yeah, that was something that we had to also figure out how to do over the time. So yes, first be open and share and spam, and then you progress into a more one-to-one relationship with the LP.
Yeah, for sure. Great. All right. Anybody else, or we want to move on to the next one? Let's do the next one. All right, so this is thinking about back office transformation. So I'm going to give this question to Daniel, because Daniel is an Affinity customer. So Daniel, you probably already know this. At Affinity, we have a lot of customers that switch to us after suffering through years of spreadsheets just to track things like deals and founders and portfolios and the like. So Affinity solves this by offering a simple to use and interactive platform. Hopefully you agree. So of course that means better organization, it means better Monday meetings, it means better notes that you can use, it even means better and stronger relationship building as well. Yeah, me too. As your firm moved to more automated systems, what was your biggest aha moment, if you will, around that shift to improve visibility and also improve collaboration?
Yeah, so agree with Affinity making our lives easier now for many years, but for context for answering that question, so as I was mentioning, we've been investing now for over 20 years. We have 7 funds between exits and companies that unfortunately have not made it. Let's say from our main funds, we have over 70 active companies. Apart from that, we have a series of like scout pre-seed vehicles. Those are vehicles where you have people writing checks on behalf of us, like operators and founders. And we have 5 of those vehicles. Those vehicles write between 10 to 15 investments per year. So you just start adding the math, that's like 70 new companies per year on the standalone in those vehicles. And we are 10 people in the investment, 10 people in total in Flybridge, 5 on the investment team. So managing all of that is extremely, extremely complex, and it has been historically a challenge that we had. Part of the reason we have those vehicles is to, 1, have an access to a unique deal flow, but 2, also be able to support them, but it was hard to manage that. And with AI, which being the topic, we start thinking how can we adopt AI to help in that process that has been super painful in a process that it's very important for us. And as a result of that, on the question on portfolio management, so we created an automation internally at Flybridge where basically we receive the updates of all of these companies in a centralized inbox. Then using AI, we kind of extract the elements that we care for in those updates. The 3 main ones are is this company fundraising or looking to fundraise in the near future? Do they have a request for us in help hiring, help making an intro? And then when we extract that, that gets sent to Slack in separate channels that we have. So that way we are able to be really on top of things that before, again, as a very small team was super hard. So that has been kind of that magical aha experience that you were asking, very small team, leveraging AI internally to really, in that way, 1, we don't miss companies from those vehicles that it's raising, and we want to take a proper look to be, hopefully, their lead investor in the next round. And second, if they have a request for us, and any team member can be able to quickly see it on Slack, doesn't take more than 5 seconds, and offer them better support. So I'll put that case.
Love it, love that. Awesome. Anybody else have anything to add? Good for the next one then. All right, well, this question is for Michael. Michael, as a GP, you're kind of over all of it, right? You see it from the highest level possible. And you're watching your firm operate across the investment team, the finance team, the platform team, all of the above, right? So how do you prevent automation from becoming a barrier to collaboration, I guess is the big question, right? More so, how do you keep relationship data flowing across departments without it becoming siloed in different tools or different workflows?
That's $1 million question.
It's a big question,
yeah. Very, very interesting topic for sure. So although we are a small team, so basically on the VC side we are 7 people, we shouldn't have this kind of siloed issues that much, but we do as well. It's already starting also because we use many different tools. So I think from AI kind of tools, we use at least 7 when it comes to everything from deal sourcing to using Elicit for academic research and screening founders, custom GPTs, notebook LM automations, then post-investment Westbury, and all of this stuff. So, and the siloed kind of things happen as you adopt more and more tools. So I think the way we are trying to avoid it is before we adapt any tool, the mindset should be workflow first. So start thinking about how the team communicates and how they do things. and try to implement a tool to it and not other way around, build operations around the tool. Because with all these many hundreds of new shiny tools popping up around you, what might happen is that, yes, everybody gets excited, everybody wants a new tool, new AI to be used for their own personal or workflow, and that's when the silos happen. So, and I think also like we do two things to avoid these kind of things. One is, before any tool is implemented, everybody needs to do it the hard way, manual way. So, sweat and tears, try to create and generate value before you start to automate it. This is, I think, very important because also the people that work on this, they feel the ownership around the value that they generate and not being an admin of a tool. Because if you just push them to use a tool, they start to be like, their work is like, yes, I've done it because I clicked this and that's supposed to be in the tool and that's it. But if they basically think from the beginning about the value generation, it's a completely different mindset for them as well when they start using it, because they don't get married too much to the tool itself, but they get married to the value generation and what should be actually achieved. And I think the other thing that we've done maybe differently or than anybody else is like, we do any automation or tool reviews we do with peers. So we don't talk to the actually you guys or Westbury or something like that, but we have like bi-weekly calls with 12 other VCs where we share what they are using. So basically we do demos to each other. I think to date we've done demos like 35 different tools. And this is very useful because basically you don't get hooked on selling or being sold like different features that you might actually not need just because they're cool. But you are thinking from the day one of like, okay, how it is actually used in a real life, how other VCs use it, and is it actually fitting to my workflow? So that's kind of useful that I would recommend everybody else to do as well.
I like it. Nice. Very nice. All right. So in the interest of time, we're going to continue moving on, and we'll move to our next question. And this question is actually for Georgie. As someone who advises on tooling and automation, what are standout platforms or AI models that you've seen transform how VCs manage deal flows or LP reporting or founder engagement as well? I'm curious also if you've seen, like, perhaps if tools purpose-built for VC make a big difference compared to, generic tools and stuff.
Yeah, great question. Okay. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to highlight some really cool tools that we've been implementing or tools that may not necessarily be for VCs, and I'll talk about some for VCs. First of all, I think when you're choosing tools and you're selecting, it's really important to consider, of course, price, the modularity of the tool, because you don't want to be locked in. Tools change every 6 months, even faster right now with how fast the market is shifting. And then maintenance. The most expensive line of code is the line of code that you write yourself, so you want to, as much as possible, avoid writing code. The tool stack, of course, is going to be different for a smaller fund versus a larger fund. So we work generally with clients between 100 to 500 million AUM. The less engineers you have on board or no engineers, of course, is a completely different tool stack. When I look at the tool stack that you want to have, obviously you want to have a proper CRM. And Airtable is not a CRM. Notion is not a CRM. You probably want to have an Affinity or something like that, and that is a huge value add. And Affinity, 100%, you want to have an Affinity or something like that.
I didn't pay him to say that.
No, he did not. That's true.
Maybe I should.
Let's talk. So CRM is definitely non-negotiable, but as a VC, you also want to be thinking about, there's definitely the sourcing component of the data early on. You're like, where are you getting that data from? So what are the sources? How are you getting that data? Where are you storing it? Probably in a proper database, because you want to get that historical data. And then how can the folks at your firm access it through a CRM? So I'm quickly going to go through some things that I think are very valuable. When you're a lower end firm, when you don't have a lot of money to build big data pipelines, I would recommend that you focus on tools like, maybe not, there's Zapier, Make, N8N. Pick a Make or N8N and go ahead and start integrating the data. What I see VCs underutilizing is actually tools like Clay.com, although Clay is a very sales-specific tool, but Clay.com, we've been using it more and more for enrichment. It's not a perfect solution, but you don't need to spend months building a LinkedIn scraper where you can start scraping LinkedIn data already through Clay. You can start getting deal room data, Crunchbase data. You don't have to be locked in for a 2-year contract, and you can access any sort of data you want and put that into your database. So think about some tools like that. Like Clay, I highly recommend that. It's been blowing up, and if you guys haven't tried using Clay, a lot of sales companies are using Clay, and they have tons and tons of integrations to find all sorts of data that you can then feed into your database. And there's also, I think there's also another one that's popping up that I saw. It's called autogrid.io. Auto. They're basically like another Clay, but they do something similar. So you basically have a fancy table, and you can tell it to source data. So Clay, 100% underutilized. Totally get it, especially if you're a smaller fund and you don't want to be locked into a 1-2K per month contract for 2 years. We see when you're building the data pipelines, like definitely if you're on the lower end, like Maker and 8N, that's probably something that you want to use to integrate the data and put that into a database. You don't need a huge, sophisticated database, but you want something that's scalable and transitionable as your firm scales. So we generally try to get people off of Airtable or something. We want to have a PostgreSQL database that as your firm scales, you can transition that into something more robust. So we usually start people off at Supabase, because when you do eventually want to go from Supabase to like a Snowflake or a proper data warehouse, it's a very quick and simple transition. So something like that is very, very easy to do. So start off at Supabase. You can pipe the data in. Very simple. You can set it up in half a day. And then you can integrate it with Affinity. You can integrate it with Atio, whatever, and it's all linked. So those are quick wins that you can build. And then on AI agents. So AI agents are all the rage. If you're a smaller fund, you probably don't have a huge engineering team to build out AI agents. I recommend you check out Relevance AI. Relevance AI is huge, where you can just build sophisticated AI agents. You can build them in N8N as well, but I think Relevance AI, they have a lot of really cool connectors. You can run tons of agents in parallel. They can do all sorts of tasks for you. And they have API calls, so you can like API call different agents in your workflows and integrate them. So I think that's I think those solutions are really underutilized, but I see them used in other spaces and some of the other verticals that we serve. And we've started using them for our clients, and they've seen incredible ROI. And it's quick and easy to implement. If you're a small team, you don't have a huge budget, you got to get the best bang for your buck.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Awesome, and that kind of actually takes us into our next question, and we'll open it up to all of you guys. I think that all of you might have something to say about this, but it's around the cost and value of AI tools. So, AI tools can promise efficiency, right? But the implementation of it and the cost of it, takes time and money, obviously. So how do you evaluate whether a tool is worth it? And have you found success in adopting platforms where relationship intelligence and workflow automation are built into the core rather than layered on as an afterthought?
Yeah, I'm happy to start at least with the first part. So I think it comes down to, is the value large enough to justify the cost and time? And in that sense, what we started doing internally is the value we divide in two parts: tasks we already do, and the time it takes us, and how much we think we can save of that time. And the second area around AI is like maybe things that we couldn't do before that now, thanks to AI, we're able to do. The time one, it's relatively easy to quantify because it's like how many hours do we spend and how frequently do we do this task and how much do we think of that time we're able to automate. The value one is a little bit more subjective. And so at the end of the day, it's like creating that grid mentally or physically around like time and effort, and obviously the high effort, low value you don't want to do, and obviously the low effort, high value you want to start there. And maybe I can do a concrete example there. So one of the things that we built internally was a memo generator. So what we thought around that process is like memos are something that likely all of you are familiar, like document that contains the thesis that you do on a company that you invest in. It takes around, I don't know, depending on the deal, call it 8 to 10 hours. We thought that using AI and different agents, we could automate maybe half of it with AI, like half with do things still like human. That by itself could cut times between 4 to 5 hours. And if you start thinking about partner time, that's like very high value. So we thought it was like value enough to do it. I think today has gotten easier, but at the time it had some degree of complexity, but it was like a standalone application. We did it internally, so there were certain elements around permissions that it wasn't that high of an effort that we decided to build. And an interesting thing we did with a project to increase the value is we decided to actually open source it. So it was like, it helps us, but we also decided to open source it to the community, like to help founders. We are big believers as an investors in open source, and that gotten us like great attention. Like over 400 memos have been generated by founders, other VCs. That has gotten us some good reputation. So that's just to put out ideas and things like you can do to not just generate value as a firm, but how you can leverage that to generate that value externally. And I think the second question goes towards like build versus buy, which is the other big question and I think you're the perfect person here. There are other workflows that we identified that are like very high value, but like really the effort is very high. So speaking with our data, like building retrieval augmented generation workflows, like it's something that you have to maintain over time. And as a fund, like 10 people investment team, it's something that you will have to maintain constantly that for us, it doesn't really make sense, in which case it's likely much better to like work with a partner like Gregory or somebody else to build those things.
Nice. Anybody else? Input on cost and effectiveness?
I can comment on the Affinity lead question, which if these fully integrated CRMs, basically with automation in-house, are better, or basically putting automation on top of it as a layer thing. So I think it's difficult to generalize the answer, because there was a good presentation. A gentleman had maybe 2 presentations before us, and he said like, you need to define if your edge is in data or the process. I think if your edge is in data, tools like Affinity are amazing for you. Yes. Because you can automate, you focus on the data, and you can you have all the tools already in one tool, and it solves loads of headache for you. If your edge is in the process, like how you do things, so for example for us is, we are very network driven, and we have a vast network of GPs, LPs, startups, and the way we matchmake them and generate the value is very specific. And we do automation on top of it, but we need very, very much custom touch on top of it. And in these cases, it's basically in the all-in-one tools, you hit some limitations or what you can do, and you might lose your edge in the process in that case. So that's my personal take. I didn't want to do an anti-pitch for Affinity, but
Understood, though. Understood. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Anybody else? Great. Well, that was a wonderful session. Thank you so much to the panel. We will open up the floor for questions now. So if anybody's got questions, let us know. You can use the Slido deck too. Oh, we've got a question here. Extension of Kyle's question. VC is an innovative that works with innovative orgs. So how would you make more data companies adopt tech like AI and automation? Ooh, that's a good question.
Is VC innovative? Like, I think
it's up to you, yeah.
Most of the VC firms are adapting AI technologies quite slow. That's my probably counter argument to this question. And I see many of the SMEs from traditional businesses adopting AI much faster than many of our VC fellows and friends on the market. So I would definitely not position the VC funds as the most innovative players on the market. That's my personal opinion.
And I don't know if I got it correctly, but it was around like maybe portfolio companies, like legacy portfolio companies, if I got.
Perhaps. Yeah, I think like maybe like firms. Like how would you have a firm adopt more AI and automation and stuff like that. And with Affinity, it's about proving value, right? Nobody wants to adopt anything unless you're getting a return for it, right? And when you go out there and you shop for a new CRM, make sure it's delivering something, right? Make sure it is producing something like relationship intelligence. Make sure it is doing something like presenting something that you can actually use and actually turn around and get a good return on investment on. So that's my feedback.
And maybe just quick thought, like digitalizing traditional industries to adopt AI. I think my personal take is that short-term and mid-term, it's going to be vertically specific agents and solutions that will win. It's going to be the specific solutions for automotive industry, for healthcare, for whatever, rather than generic tools that these traditional industries will tweak and adapt themselves because they don't understand it and they don't want to go through the learning process as of yet. Maybe later on, yes, but for now I see the vertically specific players to win the market for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
I was just going to add, I would encourage curiosity. We host something called AI Playgrounds every month, and we set up a Slack channel for it as well, where we share our learnings and findings and questions regarding AI and automation.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. I'll have to join one of those. Awesome. Well, that takes us right to time. So I want to thank everybody for the time during the session. And again, thank this great panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.